Hi, I'm Earl with Victory Leadership. And not too long ago, I was approached at just a small conference on different leadership attributes. And one of the people, we had gotten into a conversation about servant leadership. And I've come across this a couple times before. And so I thought that putting together just a presentation on the topic would provide some benefit to those who are curious about the model and may look to institute it as a part of their own leadership or not. And I'll be interested to hear in why some people shy away from it. Now, one of the things about servant leadership that I've seen is that some people think of it from the perspective of exactly what it says, servant leadership, and may not necessarily derive the ideal, perspective on that, just based on the words used in the model. One of the things about servant leadership is that it really looks from the perspective of how that person, how that leader interacts with the model. It's from their perspective of how do they serve those who they are in charge of. Now that service is more likely occurring in ways that some people are not thinking of, and then look at it as a method that is used for leaders to transfer some of their leadership power over to their employees, and while there are shared leadership models, that's not necessarily what servant leadership is looking to do. It's not where the leader becomes a servant to the employees in the traditional sense, but it looks at a little bit more of a fundamental approach as to how a leader interacts with them in the environment. So one of the things about servant leadership is that the model was essentially developed in the early 70s by Robert Greenleaf, who went on to write a book referred to as Servant Leadership. And the subtitle is A Journey into the Nature of Legitimate Power and Greatness. And I think the key term there is legitimate. There are leaders who attempt to be coercive or toxic, and that's another topic that I'm developing that is of great interest as to why we tolerate these people in our environments. And this model looks at it from, as I mentioned, that legitimate perspective, to where it's a strength-based approach instead of one that is approached from a deficit. And this was followed up some years later with another book titled The Servant Leader Within, A Transformative Path. So these look at the journey into the individual leader and how they may choose to interact with the environment. At a later point, we will look at 10 attributes of servant leadership that was identified by Larry Spears, who worked with Robert Greenleaf, and further develop the model in the sense that it was broken down into these 10 parts that help people who are interested in the model and how they can apply it to digest it in these in little bits. And following with that theme, I will introduce the first topic, and then I will develop these short videos on each subsequent topic, following up with a conclusion. So that is kind of the plan moving forward, and you can go back and take a look at specific points of the model that you feel are beneficial and review those areas without the bulk of the entire presentation. So with that, moving forward, is the first attribute is listening. So listening was identified as a commitment to good communication skills, to listen to others fervently. Now, communication is a very broad topic, because we look at communication, we think about talking to one another, and that's definitely important, obviously, to listen and hear the message that the others are trying to articulate. However, I say listening goes beyond just audible. However, it can engage the others in looking at body language, tone, inflection, all these different contributions to the communication model in general, as well as when we communicate at a distance. So whether that is through the phone, email, and text, those all have their unique challenges and have a method of introducing noise into that message. So as we are emotional beings, we communicate with different elements of who we are, of our persona, and that has ways of being interpreted by those who receive that message. The more elements there are, the more, or the increase of potential to better understand that message. So someone who has a certain look on their face will have a different message presentation, even if they're saying the exact same words as somebody else who is delivering a message with a different facial expression. The human face, I've heard, has the ability to express up to 4,000 different expressions. I mean, the muscles that are in the face to varying degrees, and we send off a plethora of additional communication beyond the spoken word. And when any of those elements are missing, then there's room for ambiguity, increasing ambiguity, to enter into the message. So with that in mind, we employ different things like active listening. So active listening here, we might reform the statement right back to the person and see if we're understanding what it is that they're trying to say. I've seen when different tests or surveys are translated into a different language that they employ reverse translation to make certain that the method or the message in the message holds when it is converted back. And we can use this when we are speaking with others, that we change the message as far as the words used, but not the point that's trying to be made, to something that we understand, to make certain that we are getting the message and understanding the message as they intend it. So listening is very important to get the whole gists of what is trying to be communicated or what's trying to be said. So in those ways, that listening even goes beyond just that interactive communications. Now, with so much electronic options, we've seen text messages where people interject emoticons, trying to interject that emotional part of their personality back into the message so that it has the proper conveyance. These are different challenges where you can't suppress the human emotion totally out of the situation. It's there to some extent, and it's beneficial so that the message is conveyed in the right manner with the right thought, and that is critical. And it has posed a challenge with technology in order to try and have an understanding of what's really being said. So with servant leadership, it cuts through looking for those areas of opportunity to better understand what message is being communicated so that the accuracy is as high as we can possibly make it, to get the right idea, so that we don't misunderstand and go in a direction that can be potentially damaging because we got the wrong idea, we got the wrong impression. And there's no reason, there's no shame, there's no nothing negative about asking a person 1, 2, or 3 times exactly what they mean. They have a picture in their mind, or we have a picture in our mind of the message of what we're trying to say, what we're trying to get across. And when there is a lack of a throughput to receive that message or to convey that message, then a deeper investigation is proper to understand what it is that's meant. And that can take care of a lot of misconceptions. Some may not want to ask deeper out of whether it's a fear factor with the other individual, whether it's someone is just not conveying it right and it's upsetting, and asking over and over again may seem to be overly intrusive, or just a problem with communicating. But those I think are opportunities to be overcome, to engage in. And we mention to others that, I'm sorry, I apologize, please forgive me, I'm not quite getting what you're getting at, what you mean, what you're saying. If you can give me a little bit more information, and it may just be a lack of a common foundation. I've been known to use a lot of analogies, and I do so because I'm looking for a common ground that we can share, and then we can have a more depth or an improved process of communicating that message with one another. And that provides an opportunity to learn about another person, or learn about one another in the method and how we communicate. So that provides a wonderful self-educating opportunity, so that we look for different ways to understand how we can communicate with others that we may use in another time or in another case where we may communicate with others, and some of those challenges then become a lot simpler. So that is just looking at listening in the introduction to servant leadership. Next, we will move into the next attribute identified, which goes into empathy. And how does servant leadership promote good empathy?